Welcome to Music for Storytellers, a podcast dedicated to music for visual media. My name is Joey Reda. I am here with my co-host Fabian Kratzer, and this is episode number 2 about orchestration, and our first guest is Ana Krstajic. Ana is a talented pianist, composer, and orchestrator from Serbia. She attended the University of Arts in Belgrade and holds a master's degree in film scoring from Berklee College of Music. Ana has composed pieces for concerts and theater, which have been performed all over Europe and in the US. Today, Ana primarily works as a composer and orchestrator for film, television, and video games. You might have heard her music in the animated series Puffin's Impossible, or the mobile game Heroic Magic Duel by Nordeus, which I was absolutely addicted to. And here we go. Hello, Ana, our dear friend Ana. How are you?
Hi, Ana.
I'm very good. How are you guys?
Very well.
Yeah, fine.
We're very pleased to have you on our show as our first guest.
This is insane. Crazy? I'm so honored. I'm so happy to see you both together. It's been how much? It's been 4 years, right? Since Berklee.
At least, yeah, I think, 2018.
2018, exactly.
Wow.
And so we're here today, and you're here today, to help us demystify orchestration.
Okay.
And I don't know how we could just go right into it. So, what is orchestration, Ana? Please tell us.
So, I think the best way to explain it is to say that it's actually writing music for an orchestra. Mm-hmm. Actually adapting music which is composed for another medium or another instrumentation. Sometimes I hear in English that instrumentation word is related to orchestration, which is for me a bit confusing because here in Serbia we use instrumentation as the word for science about instruments, lecturing about the specifics of each instrument. So we don't use that term here at all. We just use orchestration or arranging. So also we should say that most of the time we use orchestration like in classical music, composers were orchestrating themselves, their own work. But nowadays we have people who are specifically trained to work as an orchestrators or arrangers. So basically, I think that's it. Orchestration is adapting music which is written for piano or some other ensemble for an orchestra.
Right, exactly. Makes sense.
So just to make this clear, in Serbia, there's no, you don't make the difference between instrumentation and orchestration?
Yeah, it's a totally different thing. For example, when I was studying, we had a class which was called instrumentation, and in that class, we learned about instruments. We learned about specifics of their range, their timbre, how are they played, how are they performed, what is their role in orchestra. And orchestration is actually the skill of using them in a right way.
That's how it was for us too in Canada when I learned it. Instrumentation is learning all the specific things about an instrument or each instrument of the orchestra. And then orchestration is more assembling parts and see how different instruments play with each other, you know?
Yeah, and instrumentation can also mean when you have at the beginning of the score, instrumentation, what instruments did you use for?
Right. So instrumentation will affect your orchestration, obviously, right?
Of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so this is what you've been doing, right? For the past, you've been doing it for a long time, but since we graduated from school, you've been doing a lot of orchestration, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I actually love it. And I always prefer of doing it when I'm working on my own music. I prefer doing it by myself because I don't know, because I was classically trained, I feel like the orchestration is a very important part of composition too. And I feel that only the composer can really know what he wants or she wants to express with the instrumentation, with instrument colors in their work. But if you have really good collaboration with your orchestrator who understands your work, I think it can also be perfect to work with somebody. especially if you don't have not enough time to do it by yourself. But for example, I'm working since Berkeley with the composer here, who I'm doing almost every orchestration that he needs to do for an orchestra, and it's super exciting for me because sometimes he actually rarely provides me with only piano sketch. Most of the time, he gives me like a sketch, mock-up sketch of a few instruments, including strings and piano, and then he says, like, he gives me a reference track and says I need it to sound like this. So that's basically my job here. And also he gives me freedom, which is really cool. Freedom in terms that I can, you know, sometimes like make some harmonies richer, or, you know, if I feel that melody should be a little bit different, I can also change that, you know.
Or like add brass here or percussion. Can you add stuff? And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, whatever I want to do, that's great. Yeah.
But you said it's not just piano. He'll sometimes have like some strings or some elements of the orchestra in there already, like some of his own ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Because when he adds, and for me that's also helpful, because if he adds some strings with piano, then I can understand really quick what kind of style he wants, you know, in terms of treating the strings, you know. Because it's really subtle to in terms of orchestration and how do you use like the character of some instruments. So if he provides me with some sketch of strings, for example, I can clearly know the emotion of the cue, or the how big he wants to go or how small he wants to stay, you know. So that's really helpful for me.
Cool.
But then would you say that orchestration is completely separated from composition, or at some point it's composition also? Because when you're adding brass and you're adding a separate melody or something like this, it's composition as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think it really depends. Like from my perspective, I sometimes some instrument defines the for film music defines the main thing in the score. Like I start from some color, you know. I don't start with the content of the music, you know, or melody. I just start, oh, I need this to be like solo cello or whatever. Or I can hear like, or other composers also do that, I'm sure. They hear some kind of sound, you know, and they're like, oh, I need it to be in this kind of sound or orchestration. And then they choose to work with, you know, all the compositional stuff. So I think it's really, it's not that, it depends on the project too. Like, for example, if I have some animation, which is really like Mickey Mousing, and I know that it has to be orchestral setup, I always start with piano, for example. If I know, like, before what is the lineup, I start with piano and I do all the composition stuff and then I orchestrate it. But if it's some more maybe artistic movie, which I feel that I have to find some specific sound of the instruments, then I start at the same time with, you know, composition and orchestration.
That's super interesting. So you on some types of projects that are more artistic, you might just not even think about chords, melody, and just think I want solo cello for this scene, or not even for films. I mean for anything. You just think I want solo cello because that's what you hear before even the notes or the melody.
Yeah. I mean, that's also influenced by the things that I'm listening, I think. Like, I'm now working on some movie, and I was listening to Johnny Greenwood work on Power of Dog, and he has this pizzicatos on cello. Like, I'm not sure, is it like how many cellos he's using there or other instruments, but the sound was, for me, really cool. So I wanted to try something similar. And I decided to score I think he has also full orchestra and piano later, but I decided to score this film with just one cello and to try to, you know, extend from the instrument as much as material as I can with all the extended techniques and all the, you know, other like maybe more common stuff. But with that idea, I started composing. Like I had in mind just one instrument, you know.
Okay.
The budget was low, also, so that was why we chose.
That helps, yeah.
Yeah, but it's even more for me like creative if I'm limited, you know. If I know I have just one instrument, how can I, you know, score the whole, you know, feature film with that?
Why do you prefer that?
Because then I feel like I have my mind is more focused on just the music. If I know I have this one instrument, then the content that I'm producing has to be, really good. If I have all the, I can always put piano there. I can put, whatever there. And this way, I think it's much more maybe difficult in one way, but for me, it's more interesting to work like that.
Yeah, I think in general this is a problem, right? In our world, that we have with the samples we have all the possibilities, but that's sometimes also a huge limitation, because we could add here and here and here and here and here and then use everything ever produced, but most of the time it's too much.
And for this project, Anna, you actually did it with one cello, just one cello, that's it.
Yeah, we didn't finish it. I have to record it in a few weeks. I'm just finishing the score, and just one cello. But we are going to layer it with a lot of layers, so it's going to sound like it's more. But with one person, I'm going to record it with one person. Yeah.
So it's like many solo cellos together.
Yeah, one musician, many solo cellos. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. And so,
is it a film project?
It's a film. It's a feature film. Yeah.
So then that's maybe a good question. How do you tell your ideas to the director in the mock-up status? Can you create mock-ups of the ideas you have for the cello, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so this was really cool. The director, she wanted some intimate sound. She didn't want it to go that big, and because it's the movie is really interesting. It doesn't go linear, Like we have, like in Tarantino, we have like segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, but they are not linear in this one. So sometimes you see scenes which are repeating, but in different angle, are recorded in different angle. And the main character, the girl, is all the way running from something in the movie. We can see that she is disturbed and she starts to run. Then she runs for 2 or 3 minutes. And the director wanted to have this rhythmic pulse always following her, like her main theme would be something like that. And I immediately remembered this score that I mentioned from Johnny Greenwood, which has this, just repetitive, minimalistic pizzicatos going all the time. So I played her with his scores with temp as a temp.
Okay.
Just to check if she likes the sound, this kind of sound, this kind of color, and she loved it. She's like, this is perfect. This is not too big. We have everything we want. Like, it would be great if you can do something, like that. And then I started doing my own stuff. So that's all. I mean, some people don't like them, but I really like it because it's a shorter way to figure out what director wants. For me, it's really helpful because then they know. It would be great, much better if I had my own music, which is, in that kind of style, so I can play her something of my own. But in this way, she immediately reacted, and I knew what her vision was. And now I created something completely different. I just kept the color maybe of it,
Maybe let's just clarify this one phrase. So for those people who listen to us who don't know anything about film music, what is temp track?
So temp track, I think it works different in the States than in Europe. I think like in the States it's really common, like almost all the time music editors are temping the picture with the pre-existing music material. Sometimes they use, if they're really close to composers, they're using the work of the composer who is hired on the movie, and they tempt it with that music because it's much easier for the film editor to edit the film with some music in it. And then the composer receives the picture with this temp score, or actually the music which is already composed by somebody against the film. And then they decide to either like follow it or just to erase it and do something what they want. But here, I don't know, like for me, for example, we don't have here music editors in Serbia. Like I'm just doing everything, so sometimes I just start from scratch, and sometimes I even feel like it's helpful to try some stuff against picture. For me, like I can like see it clearly if something works or not. So, yeah.
Yeah, for lower level projects, even here in North America, there's not always a music director to put a temp track to the film, right? So maybe it's often it's the composer's job to do it, or with the director. Maybe the director also just has ideas of temporary music to add. How about you, Fabi? Have you?
I think it depends here, because here it's always a matter of time. Either the editor is doing it during he edits, because you just need something, or you have only 5 days, for example, for 25 minutes for an episode, and nobody has time to do anything at all, so they just edit it and send it to you and say, okay, go for it, and there's no time at all to put some pre-existing music on it.
Right.
I think that's also a very American thing, like a Hollywood thing, right? With the temp track, it's like super established there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, because I think that, and that's why a lot of composers there don't like it, because the director is looking at the movie with the temp score. Yeah. First time he's looking at edits with temp score, and then if he likes the temp score, he requires from the composer to just copy it, and everything. And
yeah, that's the danger, right? The danger is what do we call it? Is it temp love? What's the temp love? When you fall in love with the temp track and then nothing will ever come close to it, but that's our job to make it work,
Yeah.
But I think it's also sometimes a problem, not even that they fall in love with it. It's also when they temp it with a Hollywood production, which, I don't know, they had millions of money to record and produce the music, and then you have to reproduce the same only with samples. That's almost impossible.
Yeah, that's why I really prefer doing it by myself, because I would never temp something with John Williams,
Yeah.
I'm not that stupid,
Yeah.
I will do it with some Joey's music. I'm kidding.
Wow.
I love you.
Of course. Speaking of MIDI and real orchestra, how does that, when you compose or when you orchestrate, does that change for you?
So because I started with, just writing with pen and paper, and later in my life I learned MIDI and sequencing and everything. For me, it was the different problem. I didn't know how to produce with the samples, the real thing, the orchestral sound. And then I learned, because I was using it the way that I'm orchestrating, and that doesn't work with samples, as I'm writing on paper. So I realized that you have to add much more stuff with samples, which are maybe not applicable to writing a score, in order to have the sound that you will have, like if you write it for a real orchestra. So for me, it's really different. Like, I know exactly what to use. Like, I know if I use like 20 horns, it will sound like 6 horns in real life orchestra or something like that. I have to always add much more with samples in order to have this realistic sound. And then I, of course, know that I have to reduce it for writing,
Are there other examples of that? Like, you can give us maybe, like, you just said you have to add like 20 horns to make it sound like 6 horns in real orchestra. Are there, like, for strings, maybe other examples?
Yeah, like for strings, I have to layer a lot of different libraries to have this sort of imperfections that you have, when you hear orchestra performing live. Because for me, like, if I use the same library, it sounds really, much less than it actually says. Like, it says for, I don't know, some libraries that you have like 12 first strings, for example.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound that at the end, So I have to layer it in order to have this. And again, if you think about it, like each person in an orchestra has different instrument, plays a different way. And I figure out if I layer things, I have this 3D picture instead of 2D,
Yeah.
So I tend to layer strings a lot. Like, I use only one sample or soloists for woodwinds. I don't feel that it works like if I layer like solo parts, And for brass also, I tend to use much more than it actually has to be used in real orchestra in order to have this big, sound. If I'm doing big sounds,
Right.
I mean, a lot of those stuff can be fixed in mixing too. I mean, it doesn't have to be in MIDI programming. But it's weird. Like, for example, if it can, for people who are not like classically trained, it can be really tricky if they, if they mix the mock-up and the way that they want it to hear,
Yeah.
at the spot. If they have some like spiccatos on string, and they put it really, high in the mix so they can hear it, and then they write it down in the score, and you cannot hear them at all because it's just viola playing spiccato, whatever. That can be a problem. So I think the best way to do is to just listen live orchestras as much as you can, like with the scores,
Yeah. For that, you mean like we have to be aware of the range, right, of the instrument, and sometimes that's not it's not shown the same way in the MIDI. So like you can play a low viola, and you'll hear it in the MIDI, but it won't translate into orchestra live, right?
Sometimes you feel like when you learn the orchestration rules, you know that there are like comparisons. Like if you have full string orchestra, one woodwind player can play against full string orchestra, and you can hear them. Like that's the rule, for example. So sometimes people who are not aware of that maybe think, oh, how can one instrument, be against 30 people on strings? And they write like in unison, or playing two flutes with like something so they can be heard, and then you can hear only flutes. Like it's really difficult. I think the best way is to learn this kind of, what works against what. So, but it's really simple at the end, because one player per woodwind always can be solo with strings.
Right.
Horns work really good with woodwinds and strings. Like that's some color which is really soft, and it can always work together fine. But then if you add other brassy stuff like trumpets and trombones, you have to have support in woodwinds with them, The strings and brass is not enough. And for example, in mock-ups, I don't know like how many scores nowadays, like epic stuff, uses woodwinds like at all, just for maybe some rolls, whatever. But in real life, if you have only strings, I can mostly hear just strings and brass, like in epic scores, and that's the thing. True. But in real life, that would not work, if they play at the same time, That's
right, because the brass will overpower. Is that what you mean?
The brass will overpower strings, like for sure, yeah.
That's so interesting. I'm taking notes.
So generally, you would say it's a huge difference when you record, or when you know that you will record with an orchestra, or when you just do a mock-up and have to use the samples on their own.
Yeah, and that's why everybody's recording separate now, separate sections. Yeah. Because then you can have control and you can just put it up in the mix, whatever you want. But in real life, that's why I think that it's you should always just come back and look at the classical scores, because at the end, everything came from there. Like all the John Williams stuff is like from classical scores, and you can see that and it's really surprising also for me when I'm listening to something and then I check the score and I see that it's only like one horn playing against woodwinds and strings, and you feel like it's huge, and I'm like, how is this huge, But at the end, it's huge, and it's really But there are some rules that you have to learn, and I think that's it basically.
That comes from the classical world, like a typical traditional orchestration, right? Makes sense.
Yeah, and also it's really important to know like the dynamic range. Like when you think about it, when you think about an orchestra, which section has the biggest dynamic range from the quieter one to play like the most quiet piece to the loudest one. When you think about it, which instruments have like now? Who can play the greatest dynamic range in orchestra?
I don't know. Is it? I wouldn't say strings. They can't play as loud as brass.
Yeah.
Brass
It's percussion, actually.
low.
Yeah.
Percussion.
Percussion,
Sure.
wow.
Percussions can play really, really, soft stuff, and they can overpower the whole orchestra.
True.
And you have this diagrams, you can find that about that, which is really important, like how loud can go strings. Then from there you have how soft can brass go up until when, or woodwinds or whatever. And then you can see the percussion cover everything.
That's so interesting because I always think of the instruments individually, but you have to think about the sections. It's really important to think about the sections, right?
Really, it's great. You have for example, in Tchaikovsky Symphony, I think it's number 4, and I think second movement or something, second or third movement, everybody's going, fading out to the most quiet bit. And you, at the moment when you think you cannot get any quieter than this, the timpani start playing, super quiet, and you figure out it's even more quiet than the strings, because they have, so much soft sound, and it's insane. That's why it's great to know that, because when they have to be subtle in scores, then okay, I can use percussion here, I can use something with strings, It's much better to use than some woodwind or something,
It's true that we don't think about percussion for soft stuff, especially for MIDI. It's always like medium loud to super loud, mezzo forte to fortissimo. But Anna, how did you become so amazing at orchestration? I mean, yeah, of course you studied it, but when you talk about scores, looking back at orchestral classical scores, do you just listen to the music while you're looking at the score, or did you ever transcribe music? What is it that you specifically did to become so proficient?
It was just studying, and I loved it. Yeah,
like reading the score.
Yeah, reading the scores, analyzing the score. Like most of the time, I would just hear something that I loved, like some piece, and then I opened the score, or some specific situation and piece, which I was not sure what happened, So then I opened the score, and I was and then I figured out, oh my God, this is insane. But it's that's the thing. In classical music, you have so many different combinations, of orchestration, situations, which are not that used in film scores, because they are too in a way complex, that you don't have to use it for film scores. It's not, you would not hear it in film. So that's, I think, in film scores they are much more simple orchestrations, because they serve the role of the music.
Yeah, but do you guys think it's because it doesn't serve the picture, or could it be because the samples we have don't allow us to think that way? We only have spiccato, legato. We only have a few articulations, say, for strings. So there's more extended techniques that we don't think about using as much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think maybe it also depends on because the movies changed, and they don't ask for that anymore that much, some, okay, interesting things, but also the samples. Yeah, that's why also, samples are following, libraries are following what is popular at, certain times, and they create this kind of stuff. So as soon as, big epic stuff started, the libraries are, just making that stuff so we can use that. But I don't know, it's really hard to, talk about it.
I think dynamics are a problem as well in film music, in the difference to classical music, because everything has to be much more compressed, because you have dialogue and SFX and all that stuff. So you don't use a very delicate orchestration at some point, because it has to be super compressed.
Yeah.
And I think that's also what you said with the percussion, that you use the percussion super soft in Tchaikovsky way, for example. It probably wouldn't work in a film score, because nobody would hear it, because there is, I don't know, a car sound
crash.
at the same time, or yeah, something like this. So it's just not working.
Yeah, that's why it's not that, creative, maybe, orchestration. I mean, there are, of course, some works that are super creative orchestral works, but because it serves different purpose in film. It's not the main thing which drives the story, and and your ears are listening to two other, like dialogue and SFX, and it's not primary thing. So that's why I think film scores are orchestrated in a way so it serves the purpose of music in terms of what should we say here. It's not that maybe creative in that way.
Right.
But Anna, would you say that that film music changes the orchestras in the way of how many people, for example, are in the string section, or etc.? Because I have the feeling now with all these thousands of film music concerts, a lot of pieces by specific composers cannot be played because they don't work with a live orchestra, because in the film music there's like samples and a lot of other effects too, especially in the percussion stuff. They have taikos and all that stuff. Do you have the feeling that the orchestras are changing because of that?
Well, I don't know, maybe, like, for sure they're changing. For sure. I mean, only this thing that we are recording everything separately, like that was never the case before.
Yeah.
And that already means that we are doing something hybrid, we are not using the ensemble as it was, created like 600 years ago, So I don't know. But also because of that, because a lot of people, a lot of composers are tired from these big sounds, Some creative stuff is happening also nowadays with smaller ensembles, which I feel like it's super cool. People are using string quartets a lot for film scores,
Yeah, that's great.
And, just soloists or whatever. So I think that's...
A few solo cellos.
Yeah, exactly.
Who would do that, right? But yeah.
Yeah, it's strange. So strange.
It's super mainstream, but yeah.
Super mainstream after Joker and everything.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
But so what's the advantage of recording separate sections?
Well, you have more control, and that's it. And especially nowadays, because you have to produce stems, and it's you have much more control with everything, and that's it.
So you have control over both the recording and then the mixing, right? Because if you record all the sections together, then you have bleed, from the microphones. You can't you're limited in that way, and then in the mixing process, then you can just mix the brass or just mix the strings, right? So that's one of the big advantages.
And is there a disadvantage too?
Well, I think not for the projects like nowadays.
Yeah.
Right, for film it doesn't matter, but in a concert context, you wouldn't want that. You want the instruments to like blend, and the sections to blend, and to listen to each other, right?
Because then you have the stuff that you will never have if you record all of them together. When all the different colors mix together in the room, that's why the orchestra is like the most powerful sound you can ever hear, live. Because you have 60 different people playing on like 20 different instruments, And when everything combines in the air, all of that colors and everything, it's insane. And also people, like, when they perform with with full orchestra musicians, they play differently, They listen to other performers, they adapt, and react and everything. So it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about time. Maybe if you only have the budget for one studio day, for example, then maybe you have to record with the whole orchestra, because if you would do it in sections, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, especially if you have like 5 minutes of music, of course you will do it all together. If it's a piece from the beginning till the end. But if you're working on a show or some film, and which are like bigger projects, then I think it's better to record separately.
Yeah.
And Anna, you're a trained pianist, right? Do you think that the what? Sorry?
Half trained.
No, 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 no. But do you think that that helps you for orchestration, or do you think sometimes if you would have been like a cellist or a violinist, it would help you more, or what do you think about that?
I'm not sure because you have a lot of like composers who were either violinists or, I think, yeah, guitarists, yeah. But no, seriously, but I think the advantage of piano or guitar or whatever, harmonic instrument is that you can read the scores, you can open the score and just try to, see what's happening on the piano, because the piano can play, it's not a melodic instrument, you have harmonies and everything, So I think that was good for me because I can always, check what's happening, and then I see on the piano, oh, okay, so this is playing, like violins are playing here, flutes are playing the same, oh, trumpet is playing the same, and then I realize, especially because I'm composing on piano, then I know, like, next time if I compose this, I can use this in orchestra here, certain chords or whatever. So it was really beneficial for me to know how to play piano,
Right. That's what I've heard, that like you're able to see the range visually, right, on the keys. You see, if you play the voicings, you see where they lie on the piano and where they lie in the frequencies range. And like being for a pianist, it's even better because you have 5 fingers instead of 4 for a guitarist, So there you go. It's like it's way better to be a pianist.
No, it's not. Everybody's playing piano. We're not special,
But I mean, it's also, sorry, Fabi, it's also not an easy instrument, but it's one of the most accessible instruments. So anyone can just go to the piano and play chords and see what it's like,
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you don't have to, try to tune it or to.
Exactly.
I remember I started, like, I was super enthusiastic, and it lasted one day. I started playing guitar like a month ago, and my finger hurt so much after 15 minutes. And I just learned 2 chords like in 15 minutes. And I'm like, this is it. I'm back to piano. Never again.
It's over.
But I think it's also what you said at the beginning with the piano, and you can sketch a whole score and then you already have a concept of everything.
Right.
And that's almost impossible when you do it with another instrument. Yeah,
because there's the many parts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're like, I know a friend who is like super talented, and he plays piano, guitar, violin, bass, I don't know, and then he records everything by himself, and he knows the instrument, like he knows violin much better than I do, so he can write more, wider stuff that like his mind is wider when he writes for violin, of course, because he's playing it. So there's also like good thing when you're not just on piano,
Yeah, I think also, Joey, for you, it's probably different when you sit on the piano or when you sit on the guitar. You probably have different ideas just because of the way your fingers are moving, or the way you can have access to the harmonies and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was like thinking. When I'm on the piano, I think more in terms of voicings and like orchestration when I'm thinking about the orchestra. But on guitar, I never think about anything like that. It's more, but maybe that's personal. I grab the guitar and play random voicings with open strings, and I look for sounds more than or riffs more than for voicings and in terms of orchestration,
Yeah, but you can, like, tomorrow you can get whatever string instrument that you want, like even if it's a traditional one, I don't know, and you can learn it much faster than I would,
Oh yeah, because
and that's really cool. Yeah.
Maybe I should. I started with the mandolin, right?
Yeah.
Actually, this is interesting. I started practicing the mandolin because I thought, hey, I'm a guitarist. The mandolin is tuned like a violin, so I'll learn the fretboard on the mandolin, and then I'll bow it. No, then I was thinking maybe I could pick up the violin, but I don't know. It didn't last very long either. Maybe a few months. I can play it, but one day.
Yeah, you should do it. You should try everything.
Actually, another thing that's interesting is I was reading orchestral scores on the, or not scores, violin parts on the mandolin too. So there's a lot of ways you can get into orchestration and learn more by even coming from the guitar or mandolin, you know, from anywhere.
No, for sure. And it's even for me, I love when I'm recording with musicians, and I always tend to like give them like all the freedom they need, you know. And I always ask them like, what else do you think, like if we are playing some part, you know, how can you perform this in a different way, you know? What else do you feel like we can do here? Like, do you have any, you know, extended techniques, or how can this sound more like romantic or more sad, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then they start, you know, playing, and then I'm like recording, you know, also like, and writing down, like, how should I write this down? Like, for example, the thing you played now, some extended stuff or whatever. And it's so much better when you are good with musicians, you know, so they can perform, you know, different stuff and like tell you what's better. Like all the time, I know with, for example, spiccatos, which are so much used in, you know, scores.
Yeah.
You feel like when I'm performing them on piano, it's super simple, you know, to play them like da 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 da, whatever, like some, you know, arpeggio chord, whatever. But sometimes when I record with violinists or, you know, cellists, they are like struggling so much.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm like, why are you, like, it's so much easier on the piano. And he's like, yeah, but this is this position, and this is this position, blah, blah, blah. It's much easier if it's, you know, without the third or without the fifth, you know?
Wow.
And I think that's really cool to learn, because sometimes something seems super easy on piano, and then when they play it, you know, they're struggling with like simple, like C major chord or whatever, but, you know, because of the strings and everything. So
that's so interesting, because I noticed you often have like a single instrumentalist, a single musician come into the studio to record a part, right? So even being one-on-one with a musician, you learn a lot from that, not just being with the whole orchestra. You don't have to be with the whole orchestra to learn more about orchestration, I guess.
I think it's even better if you're one-on-one, because yeah, they give you like more time, of course, and they give you all the details, like, and they know, you know, the orchestra, they're playing all their lives in orchestra, so they know exactly what's better, you know.
That's awesome. And you do that, how often do you get to record musicians? I know it's like if to me it seems like it's on a weekly basis, right?
Yeah, because I post on Instagram every day.
Exactly.
Videos from 2 years ago. No,
you're so hip.
No, it's not that often, but it's like most often is the work I'm doing for the composer that I'm working for, and because we're doing a lot of advertisement and like for China and for, you know, Asia. So we most of the time do, like, if we're doing some orchestral stuff, we ask for violinists and cellists to come, and just to, you know, enhance the sections, MIDI stuff. And I mean, like every week, maybe once a week, like, you know.
And what do you ask him to record? Is it just the top line a few times? How many takes? How many? What exactly do you look for?
Yeah, so this works crazy because we are pretty savage here. Our musicians, and I know this is crazy, but our musicians here that we're working for learned how to read MIDI, you know?
Oh, really?
Are you serious?
You don't even write the music down.
The piano roll.
No, because it's insane schedule with advertisement, and of course, you know, the composer lets me know like night before, we need this for tomorrow morning. It's a recording, and I'm like, of course I can't write the score now. Like I don't have the time to compose or whatever. And because we worked like that for years, and the violinist girl, she learned how to read MIDI, you know, and the cellist also. So we played them the MIDI MIDI editor window, and it's even fun for them. She told me, oh, it's like a video game. I just followed the squares.
No way.
And she even learned to like see at the spot the colors of the MIDI, so for dynamics and everything, you know.
That is insane.
I mean, she's really good, you know. She can, like, and it's simple music, so she can, you know, after first take, she can play it, you know, by ear already.
And is that just as good as, is that better than to just print the score? Even, like, I mean, in Logic or even Digital Performer, you can just print, you have a basic score that pops out when you, with the MIDI, but that's not even
I know, but I never do that because I hate cleaning the MIDI and everything. I always
Yeah, you still have to clean it up.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's better if it's always better when I write the notes, of course.
Yeah.
She's
Okay.
more relaxed, of course, and she doesn't think
But
about.
that's crazy that they could do that.
Wow, but it's also in a composer's way. It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
It's cool. You don't have to write the score, yeah. No, but it's weird because sometimes it was so funny. Like one time, I didn't have even the time to. I only used patch strings, with chords.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, "What is this? This is chords. It's not just one line." She had to
Right.
mute the other, voices, so she can first record the upper voice and the inner voice and blah blah. But when we record this show, so what she does, she overlays the first, second violin and viola. She brings viola with her sometimes, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that's also cool. And the cellist guy does the cello part, and then we sometimes pitch it for bass part, or we even sometimes pitch violin for viola part, and it's
No
really
way.
cool how it sounds, yeah, when you pitch it for octave lower.
And how many takes do you do for each part?
It depends. It depends how good it.
Or layers, I mean, sorry. Like, do you do 3 times violin 1, 3 times violin 2, or once?
Just one per.
Just solo.
Yeah, just
Okay.
yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I've heard people do like 2 or 3 to make it seem like there's 3, or more.
We don't do that. Like maybe it's because we don't have that time with advertising, but it's okay. Like it works.
Cool.
Still works. It's still like it's a great difference. It's a big difference when you even have like just one soloist with section.
And one for each section is it better? Of course, it's better than having just say one violin, right? But if you have enough for just one violin, then is it worth it to do just the top violin? I guess it adds more realism.
It's so much better. Like even if you're putting it really low in the mix with MIDI, with samples,
Yeah.
it always adds something. It's insane.
Right.
It always adds this little life thing, that you don't. When you're listening to mock-ups and when it starts, you always you can hear as soon as it starts, you can hear it's mock-up or it's something is MIDI here,
Yeah.
And with this kind of stuff, it maybe takes you a bit longer to realize, oh yeah, this is MIDI. So which is good,
Of course, it's great. It's so hard to explain. It's what is it that makes it so different? Is it they say it's the imperfection that makes it more human?
I think
know.
it's just the phrasings.
Phrasing.
Because especially for soloists, like the switch between 2 notes, like even though the
Yeah.
samples are great, like it's so delicate, like it's so delicate to perform on violin, and the people who are performing are doing that for their lives, and when only like even 3 notes like together, when the real violinists play, you can never reproduce it with I don't know, I can't do it. I really.
No, it's true. It's a good point. That's really an important part of what makes it more human, eh?
And maybe it's also the fact
what we hear.
maybe
Sorry,
it's also the fact that it's a different instrument, like a different violin than the violin samples. That's also already
Right.
creates a different
Different instrument, different player for sure makes a difference. Yeah.
different room, different microphone, all these things.
And again, it's the layering, right? I think layering is so important in what we do, and that, like you said, layering multiple libraries together makes a difference. Well, layering a recording with the library, of course, will make a even better difference or a greater difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Any other questions, Fabi? Do we?
Well, I think maybe we could also talk a little bit about the business side of it.
Yeah.
How do you make a living by being an orchestrator?
Cocaine dealer here.
Yeah, that's what I was guessing.
So I'm doing pretty good.
We're gonna mute that in post. We're gonna mute that in post. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. No, it's I'm doing like really great. I'm so grateful. It's insane because I was so depressed after Berkeley because I had to come back to Serbia because it's a small country, and I was like it's I will never get work here, and all the work that I will get, it was like stupid work, some not relevant work, but it turned out great because it's a small country. There are not a lot of people that do this, So I got a lot of work right after graduation, and now I'm really working a lot, which is great. And it's different stuff, which is amazing, like theater, film, video games, whatever, TV, and concert also stuff. But with orchestration, I'm mostly working with my composer. I'm also doing arrangements for some musicians and ensembles, and for some pop stars, whatever here. So it depends. I mostly pay per minute, not per bar or in the score.
Right.
Per minute of music, or and it depends also what lineup is, what kind of style and everything,
Okay. And would you say it's do you do more orchestration, more composition, or pretty much even same thing?
More composition.
Oh, great. Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. And
like now it's really cool, like there is some string ensemble and other city, and they have their smaller ensemble of people. It's a string quartet, clarinet, and accordion, and they want me to do like to merge different Paganini's themes.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has caprices. He has 24 caprice, different caprices, and I have to merge few of them in like 6 minutes for this ensemble.
Wow.
But to make it like one is more, I don't know, in rock style, other one is more in jazz style, like the other one is more film scoring, whatever. So it's fun. It's always fun stuff.
Always with that same ensemble?
Yeah, with the same ensemble, yeah.
And how are you gonna tackle that? You think, like, what is the accordion gonna play? Do you have any ideas yet?
Yeah, I did this first one, and it's insane. I was listening to some scores, to some pieces for this type of ensemble, and accordion is so loud. It's insane.
Yeah, exactly.
It overpowers the everyone, there. So I had to be careful with what to do, because if accordion plays the same stuff they are playing in string quartet, or even with clarinet, whatever, he's like the lead always, because his volume is like huge. So I had to combine in sort of counterpoint what they are doing, only with the stuff which has to be powerful. They are all together, and everything. So it was fun. Yeah.
Okay, so would you give him lead lines, or more to the clarinet and violin maybe?
If it depends. I was playing with everyone being the lead at some point,
Okay.
If everybody else has some lead stuff, he's mostly doing the rhythmic or harmonic stuff, really low. Okay. And the thing with accordion, it's more powerful when it's playing like, chords, and when he's playing the lead, the melody is not that powerful because it's like,
wow.
He needs when he opens and closes up the accordion. That's the way he brings power to the sound, of course.
Right.
So when he's doing it a little faster and more often with the chords and rhythm, it's more powerful. When he plays the melody, he has to do it, closing, then melody, then opening up. So it's not that it always goes in kind of decrescendo every phrase, because it's losing the power. So it was. Yeah, I don't know. I never heard them perform live. They're practicing now, so we will see what happened.
And is that a traditional ensemble, or because I've never heard of this?
No, I think they just gathered and they want to experiment with this kind of group. Okay. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it would be interesting to listen to it later on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's good, I'm going to send you. If it's rubbish, I'm never going to send you.
Very well. So I guess, is that it? Should we end it here? This is a good place to end.
Oh, why? Let's talk for an hour more. It's so fun.
Well,
I mean, the whole orchestration thing, and it's so interesting to talk to you guys. I think we could do this the whole day, but maybe we're just doing another episode a little bit later.
Yeah, we'll come back with more.
Because I think it's good if all of you who listen to us, send us questions, especially related to orchestration.
Yes.
And then in the episode number 2 about orchestration, we could answer all of your questions. So please send us the questions to contact@mfspodcast.com. You will also find that in the show notes as well.
Great. Maybe even we can go into some scores or something.
Yes, that would be super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on the next time, you mean? Yeah, that would be great. So, well, thank you, Ana, for joining us.
Thanks
and being
so
our
much.
first guest ever. It was a pleasure and super interesting. I took a lot of notes about your tips and tricks, and I'm going to use them for sure. I'm sure Fabi will as well.
You will steal my tricks. Okay, I love you. I love you.
Greetings to Serbia, and much love.
And,
much love, guys. See you soon in Spain, right?
Take care.
Yeah,
yes, see you soon.
So
Bye-bye.
goodbye, Ana. Thank you.